The moment I saw my wife kiss a stranger at the hotel pool, I knew something was deeply wrong. But I had no idea just how far the lies went, or how much of my life was fake. I'm Mike Turner. I'm 39, a lead software developer, and I live just outside Pittsburgh. I'm also a former Marine. Served 4 years working on avionics gear, then got into tech after leaving the Corps. That part of my life was solid, predictable. The part one didn't expect to fall apart was my marriage. My wife Rachel and I had been together for over a decade. She's a nurse, smart, warm, the kind of woman who lights up a room. At least that's what I thought. We had 2 sons, Ethan and Lucas, 10 and 8. Rachel talked me into getting a vasectomy after Lucas was born, and I went through with it. I thought we were building a life together, house, 2 kids, decent jobs, vacations, the whole thing. This story starts on a vacation we took to Southern California. A throwback trip for me. When I was stationed at El Toro base years ago, I'd always dreamed of coming back. So we brought the boys, hit Knott's Berry Farm, did the family thing. It was perfect, or so I thought. That night, we hung out by the pool. Rachel was wearing a new bikini and still looked like the woman I married. Joking around, I teased her, "Forget the pool. Let's warm up the bed instead." She laughed and playfully smacked my arm. "Go check on the boys, Marine." I should have known something was off then. Not because of the way she brushed me off, but because of what happened next. At the pool, a guy approached us. Maybe early 30s. Tall, clean-cut, slick kind of guy. Introduced himself as Brad. Said he was in town for a medical sales conference. Gave us his business card like he was proud of it. I didn't think much of it at first, even though we were surrounded by empty chairs and he sat right next to Rachel. Brad and Rachel started talking about medical suppliers, her clinic, the companies they used. Turns out his company, Apex Medical Devices, supplied some of the equipment where she worked. He even joked, "You must be the one ordering everything. You run the place." She laughed. "Hardly. I just know what we need." The guy was charming. Too charming. I played water volleyball with the boys while they chatted. He even jumped in and played a few rounds with us. I told myself I was just being paranoid. But something about the way Rachel smiled at him, I couldn't shake the feeling. Later that night, while getting ready for bed, Rachel made a weird comment that punched me right in the gut. Out of nowhere, she said, "Maybe Brad could finally get me the girl I always wanted." I stopped in my tracks. "What the hell does that mean?" "Oh, come on," she said, rolling her eyes. "I'm just kidding. That's not even funny," I said. "You were the one who talked me into getting snipped. Don't even joke about that." "I love you," she replied softly, like that was supposed to erase what she just said. We got into bed. She didn't try to kiss me. I didn't either. Later that night, she said she couldn't sleep and wanted to go for a swim. I offered to come with her. She said no. Someone needed to stay with the boys. I couldn't rest. My gut said something was off. So I did something I'd never done before. I set up my camera on the room's balcony, pointed it down at the pool, and hit record. I told myself I was being ridiculous. Then I saw her walk down in her bikini. She slipped into the water, swam a few laps, then sat on a lounge chair. 5 minutes later, Brad showed up. Still wearing the same shorts and t-shirt, he sat next to her. They laughed, talked. She looked up toward our room for a split second. I froze. Then she leaned over and kissed him. It wasn't a friendly kiss. It was the kind that says, "I've done this before." I tried zooming in with the camera, but then they stood up and left the pool area together. Gone. I sat there in the dark, frozen. My heart pounding so hard I thought it would crack my ribs. I kept telling myself it was just a kiss. Maybe it was innocent. But my brain was already screaming the truth I didn't want to hear. 2 hours passed. She finally walked back into the room. Quietly. She smelled different. Not perfume. Not alcohol. Just wrong. Like someone else's cologne mixed with chlorine and bad decisions. "You're back," I said. "I saw you leave the pool hours ago." "Oh yeah," she said, like nothing happened. Brad came by, we ended up talking and then grabbed drinks. Lost track of time. "Really?" "Yeah," she said quickly. "What's wrong? You look pale." My stomach churned. Just nauseous, I mumbled, rushing to the bathroom. I locked the door and stared at myself in the mirror. My hands were shaking. I washed my face, sat on the edge of the tub, and tried to breathe. The thought hit me like a truck. If she could kiss a guy she met that day, what else had she done? Was this the first time? Was our whole life together a lie? When I came out, she asked if I was okay. I didn't answer. I just crawled into bed next to her and turned away. She whispered, "I love you." I didn't say anything back. That was the first night I didn't kiss her goodnight. The next morning, I promised the boys a trip to Disneyland. I wasn't going to ruin that for them, even if my entire world had just been flipped upside down. Rachel acted like everything was fine. At breakfast, Brad even showed up again, invited himself to our table. I didn't say much, but I watched them. And when Brad asked if he could come with us to Disneyland, and Rachel hesitated before saying, "Maybe next time," the moment Brad walked away from our table, I saw Rachel smile. One of those tight-lipped, hidden smirk smiles she used to give me when we were dating. Only now it wasn't meant for me. On the shuttle to Disneyland, Rachel leaned over. "What's gotten into you? You've been weird ever since last night." I looked her dead in the eye. "I could ask you the same thing. Or maybe I should ask who you were with until 2 in the morning. She scoffed. "You're attacking me now? Let's just enjoy the day." "For the boys," I said flatly. She crossed her arms and stared out the window. The kids were excited, bouncing in their seats. I tried to smile for them, but every part of me was stuck in this sinking feeling, like I was walking through quicksand and pretending it was solid ground. We hit Disneyland, did the rides, ate overpriced food, made memories, or tried to. Every time Rachel pulled out her phone, my stomach turned. Was she texting him? After dinner back at the hotel, I figured maybe I was being paranoid. Maybe I had overreacted. So I tried. I hugged her from behind and whispered, "I'm sorry I was grumpy today. Let's put the kids to bed and just be us tonight." She pulled away. "I'd love to, but I just got my period." Something clicked. I knew Rachel's cycle. Her last one had ended right before we left Pittsburgh. This didn't add up. But I didn't say anything. I just nodded. "Well, I'm beat," I said. "Gonna lie down." "You go ahead," she replied. "I might head to the pool again." Of course she would. After she left, I waited a few minutes, then slid out of bed, grabbed my camera, and aimed it through the balcony again. And there they were, her and Brad. Again. Same place. Same stupid smiles. Only this time I caught it all. High-res, video and stills. They kissed, held hands, then left the pool together. I didn't need to wonder where they went. I turned around and saw her phone on the dresser. Unlocked. I hesitated, heart pounding. Then I picked it up. The messages between her and Brad weren't just recent. They stretched back for months. Then I saw one from over a year ago. "Brad, are you sure he won't figure it out?" Rachel, "Not yet. He's clueless. And after the surgery, there's no chance he gets me pregnant." Brad, "And the boys?" Rachel, "He thinks they're his too, but they're not. I took a DNA test. Want me to send it?" Brad, "Seriously?" Rachel, "Yeah. Ethan's real dad is Jason. Lucas is Dr. Kessler's, the guy who did the vasectomy. Isn't that wild?" Brad, "Why stay married?" Rachel, "Mike's stable. He's a good dad. Pays the bills. And after the surgery, I don't have to worry about getting pregnant." Brad, "You're cold." Rachel, "The coldest." I dropped the phone. My hands were shaking again. The DNA test was real. She had known. For over a year. She had planned this. Used me for stability while sneaking around with other men. Not one, but multiple. Couldn't breathe. I checked her planner and found a note. "Stop BC. No S." Same day as our trip started. She had stopped taking birth control on purpose, and then cut me off physically. It wasn't a coincidence. She had engineered this whole thing to let Brad get her pregnant. I started copying everything: emails, screenshots, calendar photos. I forwarded the DNA results to my email. Then, out of habit, I checked her birth control pack. Empty. All of it hit me in waves. The cheating, the lies, the manipulation, the surgery she pressured me into, the stolen years, the fatherhood I believed was mine. I was just a stand-in, a backup plan. I stayed up all night, sitting in silence, watching the door. At dawn, I called the airline, booked a flight. Then I called Rachel's parents. Her mom answered, groggy but concerned. Mike? What's wrong? I need a big favor. I'm bringing the boys home. Can they stay with you for a few days? Of course. Is something wrong with Rachel? I'll explain everything later. Just, please don't tell her. I won't. I hung up, took a deep breath, then woke the boys. Guys, pack up. We're leaving. Ethan rubbed his eyes. Where's Mom? Don't worry about it. We'll see Grandma and Grandpa tonight. Robert blinked. Is Mom coming with us? No. She's busy. Ethan glanced at me. She's with Brad, isn't she? I froze. How do you know that? I saw her texting him all day yesterday. I stared at my kid, feeling this burning rage I couldn't show. Okay, let's pack quickly. I left Rachel a note on the hotel dresser. You weren't here when we woke up, so I took the kids out for the day. Might be back late. Mike. No, I love you. No, be safe. Just facts. And as I zipped the last bag and shut the hotel room door behind me, we left the hotel before sunrise. The boys were quiet, probably picking up on my tension, but I kept it together. The airport was half empty. I got us through security fast and onto the first flight back to Pittsburgh. On the plane, the boys knocked out almost immediately. I sat there, staring out the window, mind racing. My entire identity as a husband and father had been yanked out from under me, and somehow I still had to hold it together, for them. While they slept, I opened my laptop and started researching Pennsylvania divorce law. I had no idea what I was doing, but I knew one thing. I needed a damn good lawyer, and fast. I landed, called Rachel's parents, and headed straight to their house. They greeted us with hugs, no questions, just concern. But after the boys went to play, I sat down with them and told them everything. The cheating, the lies, the DNA results. Diane, her mother, went pale. She's been doing this all these years? Frank, her dad, rubbed his forehead and muttered, I thought she'd changed. Changed from what? I asked. Rachel was wild in college, Diane admitted. She jumped from guy to guy. She was even engaged once to a guy named Jason Keller. You ever hear that name? Jason. That's the name from the messages. I think he's Ethan's real dad, I said. I saw a photo from their prom in her old album, and Ethan looks exactly like him. Diane pulled out a photo album and flipped to the page. I stared at the picture. There was no denying it. Ethan's face, his build, his eyes. That was Jason's kid. I turned to Frank. You know any good lawyers? He nodded and handed me a card. Call Laura Reynolds. She's the best in town. No drama, no pity, just results. I called that night and got an appointment for the next morning. The house felt cold without Rachel. Not in temperature, just in presence. But not in a way I missed. More like the air was finally clean. The next morning, I got to Laura's office early. She was sharp, direct. Tell me everything, she said, folding her hands. I didn't hold back. I gave her the emails, photos, planner shots, DNA test. Her eyes didn't widen. Her mouth didn't drop. She just nodded and took notes. This is bad, she finally said. For her. Good, I replied. But you should know, Pennsylvania is a no-fault divorce state. Infidelity won't win you everything, but it can help with custody and financial division. I don't want to give her a cent, I snapped. She used me, lied to me. The kids aren't even mine. You raised them, she said. That still matters. But we'll push hard. We talked logistics, custody, asset division, court steps. I signed paperwork and handed over a flash drive with all the evidence. Then she asked, when do you want the papers served? As soon as possible, I said. She doesn't know I've left California, and she won't expect anything. Good. We'll catch her off guard. I left her office and took a deep breath. I wasn't okay, but I was moving. That night I sat with the boys. Ethan looked at me and asked the question I'd been dreading. Dad, are you and Mom getting a divorce? I swallowed hard. Yeah, bud. We are. His face dropped. Did I do something? No, I said, pulling him close. You didn't do anything wrong. You're the best thing that ever happened to me. Both of you are. Then why? He whispered. Why don't you love Mom anymore? I couldn't give him the whole truth. Not yet. Sometimes people change. And sometimes they do things that can't be undone. Ethan nodded slowly. She lied to you, didn't she? I looked at him. He already knew. Yeah, she did. He didn't cry. He just leaned against me. And that crushed me even more than tears would have. That night, after I put them to bed, I reviewed Rachel's phone backups again, just to be sure I hadn't missed anything. I hadn't expected to find more, but there it was. A conversation with a number I didn't recognize. A man labeled simply as Mac. Rachel, he knows. I think he saw the messages. Mac, do I need to handle this sooner? Rachel, Thursday night. He'll be distracted. And I'll be here until Friday. Mac, what about the boys? Rachel, they can't be witnesses. You know that. Mac, payment. Rachel, he's worth over $1 million in life insurance. I'll give you $250. I stared at the screen. My heart stopped. They weren't just cheating. They were planning to get rid of me. And maybe even the boys. I clicked on the number. Pittsburgh area code. I copied the transcript, downloaded the audio, and forwarded everything to Laura. Then I called her. She picked up on the second ring. Mike, I need to come in, I said. Right now. She heard the panic in my voice. I'll clear my schedule, she said. Get here now. Laura met me at the door, ushered me straight past reception and into her office. She locked the door behind us. I need you to sit down, she said, already grabbing a legal pad. Now tell me what you found. I opened my laptop, pulled up the files and played the recording. The voices were crystal clear. Rachel, he knows. I think he saw the messages. Mac, do I need to handle this sooner? Rachel, Thursday night. He'll be distracted. And I'll be here until Friday. Mac, what about the boys? Rachel, they can't be witnesses. You know that. Laura just stared at the screen, not blinking. She's trying to have me taken out, I said, my voice tight. Possibly the kids too. This Mac guy, do you know who he is? No idea. Just the name and the number. I'll call someone I trust. A private investigator. Within 20 minutes, a guy named Jack Foster showed up. Gruff, ex-military, zero nonsense. He listened to the recording, reviewed the transcript, and asked one question. You mind if I trace this number? Go ahead, I said. He ran it through his laptop and looked up. Pittsburgh PD. Registered to a burner phone, but linked to a Captain Alan Ross. He's internal affairs. A cop, I nearly shouted. Jack nodded. One with a history, divorce, alimony, gambling issues, plenty of rumors, no official reprimands. Until now. So what do we do? Laura jumped in. We bring in the district attorney's office. Quietly. No leaks. If a police captain is involved, we can't trust local enforcement. Within the hour, Eric Sanders from the DA's office joined us. He listened, took notes, and confirmed. If this pans out, we're looking at conspiracy to commit premeditated removal, involving a law enforcement officer. That's federal. You think we can arrest them before anything happens? I asked. We'll move fast, Eric said. Can you stay somewhere safe until then? No. I have 2 boys. I'm not disappearing, but I can upgrade security. Done, Jack said. I'll post 1 man outside your house, another inside. You'll be watched 24/7. I nodded, heart pounding. That night, I told Frank and Diane everything. Every dark, disgusting piece. Frank disappeared into the basement and came back with a shotgun. Do you know how to use this? I was a Marine, I replied. It's loaded with rock salt, he said. Not fatal, but it'll make them regret trying. The next morning, Jack's team installed security bars on the windows, reinforced the doors, and installed a temporary surveillance system. One of his guys, Nate, moved into my house to stay overnight. I kept everything normal for the boys, dinner, bedtime stories, school. But inside, I was shaking. Then, just before bed, my phone buzzed. New email. No subject. It was from Rachel's old burner account. There was a video file attached. I clicked it. Rachel was sitting on a hotel bed, wearing lingerie, laughing. She looked directly at the camera. What do you think of your little wife now, huh? Still believe in family vacations? My partner Alan is gonna handle everything Thursday night. Enjoy your last few days, sweetie. She raised both middle fingers at the screen. Then it cut out. I forwarded it to Laura and Eric immediately. Within 15 minutes, Laura called me. This changes everything. This is a confession and a threat. It's time to arrest her. Do it fast, I said. Thursday is tomorrow. We'll coordinate with LA County Sheriff, she said. She'll never see it coming. I hung up and sat on the couch, shaking. Nate walked in, saw my face. You okay? I just nodded. I'm here, he said calmly. Anyone knocks that door down, I promise you, they won't make it back out. I slept that night with the shotgun beside my bed. Thursday came. At 5:30 a.m., a SWAT team raided Rachel's hotel room in California. They found her in bed with Brad. She was arrested, cuffed, and processed without even brushing her teeth. She asked for a phone call. She used it to call me. Mike. Her voice was shaking. You got some nerve, I said. Please. They're saying things, crazy things. Not crazy, I replied. Just finally catching up with you. I didn't mean it. You recorded it. On video. You wanted me gone. Maybe the boys too. No, Mike, please. I cut her off. You don't get to say please. You lost that right when you decided our lives were disposable. She was silent. I've got full custody. The divorce papers are coming. And you? You're going to rot. Then I hung up. That night, I sat with my boys and watched them sleep. I had never felt so broken or so fiercely protective. They weren't my blood, but they were my sons. And no one was going to hurt them again. The next morning, Eric called. We got him, he said. Ross. Captain Ross resisted arrest. Opened fire. Officers shot back. He's gone. I let out a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. Is it over? For now, Eric said. But you need to stay sharp. I will. And as I sat down with my coffee, watching the sunrise, I realized I wasn't scared anymore. I was just angry, and I was done waiting. 2 days after Rachel's arrest, I walked into the county courthouse. She was being flown back to Pittsburgh in cuffs, and I was there to make sure she saw what she threw away. When they brought her in, she looked nothing like the woman I married. Orange jumpsuit, shackles on her ankles, hair tied back, face pale. But she still managed a small, pitiful smile when she saw me. I didn't smile back. The judge denied her bail on the spot. Between the recorded threats, the drug connections, and her ties to Ross, there wasn't a chance she was walking out. Her lawyer approached me afterward and asked if I'd consider letting the boys visit her. I didn't even hesitate. They don't want to see her, and I'm not making them. Later that day, Laura handed me a manila envelope and said, Divorce papers are ready. Want to serve her in person? Absolutely. We headed to the jail. I waited in a plain visiting room while a guard brought her in. She shuffled in with her wrists cuffed and sat across from me. No divider, just a dull table between us. She looked up with watery eyes. Hi. I didn't answer. The officer next to me pulled out the paperwork. Rachel Turner? She nodded slowly. You've been served. She stared at the stack of legal pages in front of her and started crying. Mike, please. We can fix this. Fix what? I asked. The cheating? The lies? The fact that our kids aren't mine? Or was it the plan to get rid of me? She sniffled. I made mistakes. Mistakes. I leaned in. You didn't leave the oven on, Rachel. You planned to have me eliminated. There's no coming back from that. I was desperate. You were selfish, I said coldly. You used me. For stability. For money. You stole 13 years of my life. Her hands trembled as she picked up the pen. Do I get anything? I stood up. Not a cent. You won't need it where you're going. She signed. I took the papers, nodded to the guard, and turned to leave. Then I stopped and looked back. I just want to know one thing. She looked up. Why? She shrugged weakly. Because I wanted to, and I could. That was it. No apology. No remorse. Just a smug little shrug. I walked out without another word. Back home, I sat with the boys in the living room. Is Mom really going to prison? Ethan asked. I nodded. Most likely for a very long time. He looked down. I don't think I care. Me neither, Lucas added, curling up beside me. She didn't even say goodbye. I pulled them close. You two are everything that matters to me. And I'll always be here. A week later, Laura called. You need to come in. You're going to want to see this. When I got there, she poured 2 glasses of champagne and handed me an envelope. I opened it. Inside was a certified check. $5 million. Where? How? I stammered. Dr. Kessler, she said. Lucas's biological father. After I showed him what Rachel did, pressuring you into an unnecessary procedure, conspiring with a known criminal, he caved. He agreed to a private settlement. Quiet, no court. This is your after-tax payout. I blinked. And he just gave it up? His wife doesn't know. He didn't want her to. And I made sure he knew what would happen if he fought it. I shook my head. Remind me to never cross you. She smirked. I get that a lot. Over the next year, I focused on rebuilding my life. I reversed the vasectomy, spent more time with the boys, worked out, fixed the house. Bit by bit, the pain faded, but the scars stayed. And then I met Emma. She was a teacher at Ethan's school. Divorced. Single mom. Sharp wit, kind heart, eyes that could melt you. We took it slow. Really slow. I had walls up like a fortress. But she was patient. She never pushed. And one day, I realized I didn't feel like I was waiting for the next betrayal anymore. We got married 2 years later. And about a year after that, Emma gave birth to our daughter, Grace Amelia, the first child I'd ever biologically fathered. When the nurse placed her in my arms, I broke down. Not from sadness, but from overwhelming gratitude. This little girl was proof that everything I'd gone through hadn't broken me. That something beautiful could grow from all the damage. Frank and Diane were there too. Still loving their grandsons, still grateful I was the one raising them. They even adored Grace. I looked at the people around me and thought, this is what a real family looks like. Rachel, meanwhile, was still in prison. I didn't follow her story much. Didn't care to. I heard through Diane that she was sick. Something serious. Kept in medical isolation. One morning, about 13 years after she was convicted, I got a quiet call from Diane. She's gone, she said softly. No ceremony. No visitors. Buried in a prison cemetery with a number instead of a name. I didn't cry, but later that week, I sat on the back porch with Grace, now 5 years old, as she picked flowers in the yard. She ran over holding a white one. Daddy, I picked this for you. Thank you, sweetheart. She looked over her shoulder, eyes wide. That lady said you'd like it. I blinked. What lady? She pointed to the far side of the yard. She was standing right there. There was no one. What did she say? Grace looked up at me. She said she's sorry, that you can let go now. The air turned still. A strange breeze rustled the leaves, then vanished. I held Grace tighter, and for the first time in years, I said it out loud. I forgive you, Rachel, because I already had everything I needed, and she had already lost everything that mattered. Even with Rachel gone, her shadow lingered. Some nights I'd wake up expecting another blow, another twist, some piece of the past clawing its way back. But the worst had already happened, and somehow I'd survived it. The boys grew fast. Ethan started high school that fall. Lucas wasn't far behind. Emma and I made a quiet life. No drama. No games. Just real love and trust. But right when I thought the storm had finally passed, one last wave hit. It started with a visit from Jack Foster, the private investigator. He called out of the blue and asked to stop by. When he arrived, he had a manila folder in his hand and a tired look on his face. "What's going on?" I asked, motioning him to the kitchen. "This should have been buried," he said. "But it slipped through." He opened the folder. Inside were documents, bank statements, scanned letters, and a photo. A grainy image of Rachel sitting with someone I didn't recognize. The timestamp was recent. "She had a contact on the outside," Jack said. "Someone she trusted. Someone still holding on to stuff for her." The photos from 2 weeks before she passed. "The man's name is Marcus Bell, alias Mac." I froze. Mac. That was the name she used in those messages. The man she tried to hire to take care of me. Why wasn't he arrested? "He vanished before the feds could pick him up. We think Rachel tipped him off through the prison system. She used medical visits to send letters through contacts." "What does he want now?" "That's the thing," Jack said. "He doesn't want anything. Not directly. But he left something." He slid a thumb drive across the table. "I had a forensics guy scrub it. It's safe. But you're not gonna like it." I plugged it into my laptop. The folder had one video file and 2 images. The first image was a forged insurance policy, made to look like I'd added Rachel as a beneficiary again, dated after the arrest. The second was a letter. From her. Unsent. It read, "Mike, if you're reading this, I'm probably already dead. You always said I'd end up alone. You were right, but not for the reasons you think. I hated myself for what I did to you, for lying, for cheating, for using you. But even at the end, part of me couldn't stop. I thought control meant power. I thought love was just leverage. I was wrong. If there's any justice left in the world, maybe you'll forgive me. If not for me, then for the boys. Tell them I was sick. Tell them I was broken. But don't let them hate me forever. Please." I didn't know how to feel. It wasn't closure. It wasn't even guilt. It felt like a scratch on a wall that used to be a deep wound. Then I played the video. It was Rachel, weak, sickly, sitting alone in a sterile white room. "I lied to everyone," she said into the camera. "To Mike, to my family, even to the men I cheated with. But I never lied to myself. I knew who I was. I was a manipulator, a coward. I wanted control, not love. And in the end, I lost both." She paused, looked down. "Mike, if you see this, I don't expect forgiveness. But I hope you find peace. You deserve it." The screen went black. Jack stood quietly as I closed the laptop. "I didn't show this to the DA. Didn't seem like it served any purpose. But I figured you had a right to see it." "Thanks," I said, barely above a whisper. Before he left, he turned back. "You did good, Mike. Most people would have collapsed. You built something better." When he walked out, Emma came into the kitchen. She had seen the look on my face. "Was that about her?" she asked gently. "Yeah," I nodded. "Anything new?" "Just old ghosts." She came over and took my hand. "You know they're proud of you, right? Ethan and Lucas? They never call you their stepdad. You're just dad. Always have been." I nodded again, but it didn't sink in fully until later that night. That's when Ethan came downstairs. 17 now, almost my height. He hesitated before speaking. "Dad." "Yeah, buddy? I know Mom's gone, and I know what she did, but I don't really remember her much. Not the real stuff, just a few holidays, a couple of birthdays." "That's probably for the best," I said. "I just want you to know," he added. "If you hadn't told me, I would have never guessed you weren't my biological dad. You always felt like mine." I didn't say anything. Couldn't. I just hugged him, tight. "I love you, kid," I whispered. "Love you too, Dad." He went back upstairs, and I sat in the living room, laptop still open, staring at Rachel's last words. I closed the file. deleted the whole drive. Then I stood up, walked outside, and looked up at the stars. Not angry, not hurt, just ready to leave the past where it belonged. Months passed and life finally started feeling normal. Not just calm, but genuinely peaceful. Ethan got into college on a partial scholarship. Lucas joined the high school robotics team and discovered he loved building things. Grace turned 6 and asked 1,000 questions a day, always ending with, "Why, Daddy?" Emma and I had our routines. School drop-offs, dinners, bedtime stories, Sunday pancakes. For the first time in years, the silence in the house wasn't something to fear. It was something I welcomed. But normal doesn't always mean finished. One fall afternoon, I got a letter in the mail. No return address, plain envelope. I opened it cautiously. Inside was a single sheet of paper, handwritten in neat, careful script. "You don't know me, but I know what she did to you. I knew Rachel for a very long time. I knew about the pills, the men, the fake medical reports. You weren't the first, but you were the last to let her control everything. The others just left. You fought back. She didn't deserve you, and she never understood what it meant to love someone the right way. But your kids, they still need you to forgive yourself. Because whether or not they ever say it, they know. You were the only real parent they had. No signature, no way to trace it. I held it for a long time. The next morning, I walked Ethan to his car. He was packing up for his first semester away. I stood there like every parent probably does, trying not to say too much but needing to say everything. He closed the trunk and looked at me. "I'll call," he said, grinning. "I know you will." He paused. "Hey, do you think you'll ever tell Grace everything? About Rachel?" "One day," I said. "When she's ready. Not now." "Good," he said. "She deserves to know who raised her siblings." Then he pulled me into a hug. "Thanks for being our dad. Even when you didn't have to be." After he drove off, I stood in the driveway for a while. Quiet. That night, Emma found me on the porch. "You all right?" she asked. "Yeah, just thinking." She sat beside me, curling her legs underneath her. "About her. About everything," I said. "What it means to be a father, a husband, a man who thought he had it all figured out." Emma took my hand. "You built all this after she tried to destroy you. That's not survival, Mike. That's strength." I looked at her, then out toward the dark yard where Grace had been playing earlier. "She used to think forgiveness was weakness," I said. "But it's not." Emma rested her head on my shoulder. "No, it's the thing that lets you finally breathe." Later that night, I sat in my office, scrolling through old digital folders. I found a video I hadn't opened since the beginning of the nightmare. It was from one of Ethan's birthdays. He was turning 5. Rachel was behind the camera, asking him to make a wish. He smiled and said, "I already got what I wanted." Rachel asked, "What's that?" He pointed at me. "Daddy's here." I hit pause and just sat there, staring at the frozen frame. She had filmed that. She had known, even then, that I was the one who made our family whole. But she still burned it all down. And I had spent years asking myself why. Now, I didn't need the answer anymore. Some people break because they can't handle love. Others break because they're scared of being known. Rachel couldn't handle either. But I had. I still did. And that was the difference. That was why she lost. And why I was still standing. With a family, a future, and peace she'd never understand. I shut the laptop, turned off the light, and walked upstairs to tuck Grace in for the night. The courtroom was quiet except for the soft clicking of pens and the occasional whisper between attorneys. I was seated behind the prosecution table, staring straight ahead, trying not to think about the woman sitting 20 feet across from me. Rachel, dressed in prison beige, hands cuffed, eyes hollow. She hadn't looked at me once. Not since walking in. Maybe she couldn't. Or maybe she just didn't care anymore. The trial wasn't about the cheating. It wasn't even about the fake DNA or the years of lies. That was all behind us. This was about the rest of it. The pills. The black market operation. The conspiracy. The plan to have me handled. A federal investigation had pulled back layers I didn't even know existed. She had partnered with more than just Ross. There were others, people tied to the medical supply company, Apex, who had been quietly laundering prescription painkillers across state lines. Rachel's clinic had been a funnel. And Brad? Just a puppet in a bigger game. I hadn't realized how deep it went until the DEA started showing me bank records. Rachel had been storing money under fake accounts. Thousands turned into hundreds of thousands. And then came the emails. The ones they recovered from encrypted backups. She had never stopped planning. Even after the arrest. She thought maybe she could still pull off something. An appeal, a last-minute flip, even a fake diagnosis to stall court proceedings. But it all unraveled. One person she had worked with, an assistant manager at Apex, flipped under pressure, gave them everything, and now she was going to spend the rest of her life behind bars. I should have felt relieved. Instead, I just felt tired. After 3 days of testimony, the jury returned in under an hour. Guilty on all counts. Conspiracy, fraud, distribution, attempted liquidation for hire. The judge read the sentence. 25 to life, plus additional years for the narcotics charges. She didn't cry, didn't scream. She just nodded, like she had already known. After court, her lawyer approached me quietly. She wanted me to ask, "Would you consider a final visit? With the boys?" "No," I said. "We've made our peace." "You sure?" "I'm sure." The next morning, I took Lucas and Grace to the park. Ethan was still away at college, but he FaceTimed us during lunch. Grace swung from the monkey bars, yelling, "Watch me, Daddy." Lucas was sitting beside me, quietly scrolling through his phone. "Hey," I said. "You okay?" "Yeah." "You've been quiet." "I was just thinking about everything. What Mom did. The sentence." I didn't say anything. Then he asked, "Do you ever wish you never met her?" It hit me harder than I expected. "I've asked myself that more times than I can count," I said. "But if I hadn't, I wouldn't have you, or Ethan, or even Grace. So no, I don't regret it." He nodded, eyes still low. "She was your mom. That won't change," I added. "But who raised you? Who stayed? That matters more than biology ever will." Lucas leaned over and put his head on my shoulder. "Thanks, Dad." That night, after everyone went to bed, I sat alone in the living room. A box of old letters, photos, and documents on the table in front of me. I opened one of Rachel's journals. It had been entered into evidence but returned after the trial. One entry caught my eye. "Sometimes I wonder if Mike ever knew me. Like really knew me. Maybe that's why I hated him so much. He saw through the version I pretended to be." That was the line. The one that finally gave me peace. Because I had seen her. I just didn't want to believe it. She was a storm wrapped in charm. But storms always run out of rain. And now, I had clear skies. I closed the journal, put it back in the box, and slid it into the back of the closet where it belonged. Out of sight, out of mind. The past wasn't erased. But it didn't own me anymore. It was early spring when I finally got the house the way I wanted it. Fresh coat of paint. New kitchen cabinets. Clean, open spaces. It wasn't just about renovation. It was about reclaiming something that had been poisoned for too long. This house had seen the best and worst of me. And somehow it was still standing. Just like I was. One Saturday morning, I was working on the garden when Emma stepped outside with a letter in her hand. "This came for you," she said, eyebrows drawn tight. "No return address." I wiped my hands and took it. Plain envelope. Heavy paper. Inside, a single sheet. Typed, "You survived her. That's something no one else did. The others just vanished, but you exposed her. You protected your children. You did what no one else had the strength to do. Let that be your legacy." I stared at it. No name. No threats. Just that. Emma leaned against the porch post, watching my face. "You okay?" she asked. "Yeah, just weird." "You think it's from someone she knew?" "Probably." "Do you think there are more?" I looked at her. "More people she hurt?" "Definitely." I kept the letter but didn't show it to the boys. They didn't need more shadows. They were busy living, growing, becoming everything she never gave them space to be. That weekend, Ethan came home from college to visit. He brought a girl, smart, polite, clearly into him, and he introduced her like this. This is my dad, the guy who raised me, the one who taught me everything. We grilled out that night, watched movies, laughed like nothing had ever been broken. And I realized something. Forgiveness didn't mean forgetting. It meant not letting it define you anymore. Lucas, now a senior, started looking at colleges. Grace won an art contest and painted our entire garage door like a giant rainbow. It was ridiculous and perfect. Life had moved forward. But I still needed to close one last chapter. So one Sunday, I drove to the cemetery where Rachel was buried. Potter's Field. No headstone. Just a small plaque with a number. I stood there for a long time, hands in my jacket pockets. I didn't bring flowers. I didn't cry. I just stood there and said quietly, "It didn't end the way you thought it would. You lost." Then I turned around to leave. But before I reached the car, I heard a voice behind me. "I figured I'd see you here eventually." It was Diane, Rachel's mother. She looked older, tired, but peaceful in a way I hadn't seen before. She asked me to come visit her grave one day, if she ever passed, she said. Told me it didn't matter if I forgave her, just that I showed up. I nodded. "I still can't believe she tried to do what she did," Diane said. "But I guess part of me always knew she was capable of it." "You were a good mom to her," I said gently. "Not good enough, apparently." "That's not on you." She looked up at me. "How are the boys?" "Thriving. Smart. Kind. Strong." "Because of you," she said. I shrugged. "Because they chose to be." We stood there a while longer, then parted ways without another word. That night, back at home, Grace crawled into my lap with a blanket and her favorite book. "Tell me the story," she whispered. I opened the first page. She knew the whole thing by heart, but she still loved hearing it. And as I read it to her, I realized this was the ending I never saw coming. Not revenge, not money, not punishment, but peace. The kind that comes from knowing you stood in the fire and didn't burn. A few weeks after that visit to the graveyard, something strange happened. Grace, now 7, was sitting in the backyard playing with sidewalk chalk. She had drawn suns and butterflies and something that looked like our house. I brought her a juice box and sat down next to her on the steps. She pointed to the far corner of the yard. "Daddy, that's where the lady stood." I blinked. "What lady?" "The one with the sad eyes. She was here earlier. She told me to tell you she's sorry." My stomach tightened. "What did she look like?" Grace squinted up at me, thoughtful. "Like someone in a dream, but real." She said you'd understand. I didn't say anything right away. Grace sipped her juice and went back to drawing. I looked at that empty corner for a long time. The air was still, quiet, and just for a moment, I swore I felt someone watching. That night, I stood on the porch after everyone had gone to bed, staring up at the stars, thinking about Rachel, about all the destruction she'd left behind, the wreckage, the people she hurt, but also about the moments she couldn't destroy. Ethan's first steps, Lucas's bedtime giggles, the way they still looked at me and said, "Dad," like it meant something, because it did. I had spent so long angry, betrayed, haunted by the feeling that I'd wasted years of my life, that I'd been used, lied to, broken down into pieces. But I wasn't broken. I'd built something stronger out of all that wreckage. Grace, Emma, Ethan, Lucas, they were the proof. The truth is, I would have gone through it all again just to end up here. People ask what forgiveness feels like. And I think it's this: knowing the worst parts of your past don't get to shape your future. Knowing you don't have to carry someone else's sins on your back. Knowing you're still standing. Not in spite of what happened, but because of it. Rachel was gone. The past was closed. And what was left now was everything she could never give me. A daughter who looked at me like I hung the moon. A wife who loved without conditions or secrets. 2 sons who chose me even after learning the truth. And peace. Not the kind that shows up when things go your way, but the kind you earn by walking through hell and deciding not to stay there. I looked up at the stars one last time and whispered, "I forgive you," not because she deserved it, but because I did. Grace's window light was still on, her silhouette in the curtains as she danced to a song only she could hear. Emma walked out with 2 mugs of tea. "Talking to the ghosts again?" she asked with a smile. "Just letting one of them go," I said. She sat beside me. "How's it feel?" "Like I can breathe again." Emma kissed me on the cheek. "Good. You've earned it." And as we sat together under the quiet sky, the breeze moved through the trees like a whisper that was finally silent. Happiness, I realized, wasn't the opposite of pain. It was what waited on the other side.